All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Facts Over Feelings podcast. I'm once again joined here by my two co-hosts, Trevor Kaufman and Jack Eden. And it's been a couple of weeks, but we're back better than ever. And there is a lot to talk about in the sports world. We've got a lot of college football to talk about. We've got a lot of NFL to talk about, and we have the NBA in full swing. My Cleveland Cavaliers don't want to jump the gun, but hey, we're doing great. Better record than the Phoenix Suns, so I'm happy. I know Trevor's not too happy about that, but it is what it is. And without further ado, let's get into it. Look, we're gonna jump in talking about some college football, and I know the topic of conversation already. I know what it's gonna be. I know Trevor especially, but both Trevor and Eden really want to talk about Alabama and their loss last night. So look, we can talk about college football in general. We can start with talking about the Bama game if you want. We can talk about the Clemson game. I'm just going to pass this over to Trevor here and just be like, hey, what do you want to start with? What game do you want to talk about? What team do you want to talk about? What do you think of just the college football landscape right now at the top end of the playoff?
I think the college football landscape is what I said it was going to be. It's changing. Bama is not what they used to be. I'm sorry. Clemson, not what they used to be either. Ryan's flipping me off on camera. I don't understand. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, I was going to talk about Alabama because I do have some things to say, because I think we fall into this trap in college football playoff. We fall into this trap of teams have certain brands, right? When we think of Alabama, we think of this can't be killed type of team. When in reality, we need to look at college football as a 1 year, this season type of picture. And this season, Alabama's not that good of a football team. I'm sorry, they're not. Should have lost to Texas's backup quarterback who was limping. Almost lost, came within 1 yard of losing to a 3-6 Texas A&M team at home. Lost to Tennessee, lost to LSU. So 2 good losses. But this team could easily be 5-4. And I'm sick and tired of people being like, they beat Bama, they should triumph everybody because they finally beat Bama, right? The truth of the matter is Bama is undisciplined, horrible on defense, not very well coached. I'm not talking about Saban, I'm talking about the coordinators, and just overall not a great football team. Outside of Bryce Young, this team is incredibly average, right? They almost lost to a 3-6 team at home. I mean, should they not get knocked for that? Ryan, Jack, should they not get knocked for almost losing at home to Texas A&M? Yes or no?
I think they should.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess, but I'd love to knock teams for almost losing. Like I'll get in. Just keep going. Just continue with your point. I'll go next. Yeah.
Let's not make this mistake of just because they have one great win against Bama, they're all of a sudden some unbelievable, unbeatable team, right?
Who are you talking about?
I'm going to give you my top 4 in the college football rankings. This is what it should be.
Is that for this week or is that for the end of the season?
Huh?
Is that for as of now, or is this your prediction?
As of right now, this is what my top 4 would be.
Okay.
Georgia 1. No doubt. Georgia's the best team in the country.
Ryan, right? I'm waiting for it.
I know.
I'm going to go Ohio State at 2.
Okay.
I'm going to go Michigan 3. And I'm going to go TCU at 4. Those are my top 4 teams right now. If I had to go number 5, I would go, who's behind them?
Someone said Tennessee.
Tennessee. I'll put Tennessee at 5. And I'll put Oregon at 6. I think those are very fair rankings. I think if we look at the resumes across the board, I think we should slightly favor the undefeated teams. And in my opinion, Tennessee getting blown out is not a great look for them. They're not going to win it.
They got blown out. They got blown out now?
They didn't look competitive. They weren't even close the entire game. They got a garbage time touchdown that put them down 14.
Let's talk about getting blown out.
If we want to say that was a competitive game, I think we're lying, right? Twitter misinformation. If we want to say that's a competitive game, but
hey, look, this is the same gentleman over here who said the Oregon.
Are you going to say Tennessee. Oregon? Are you going to bring that up? Are you going to bring up Oregon?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have Tennessee in front of Oregon. What are you complaining about?
I'm just saying you're the same person.
Yeah, that's right. Be quiet.
You're the same person who said they were the same loss. You said they were the same loss. Okay, very different losses. That's what you. That's what was said.
It's not exactly the same loss. I think it's a similar loss just because of the context of the 2 losses. But yeah, I don't think LSU should be triumphed above these teams. And I think we should prioritize this season. And if we're looking at this season, Alabama is not that great of a football team. They will not make the college football playoff. They probably won't even make the SEC title game. And I think we need to be careful that we don't put certain teams ahead of other teams because of the brand that they've had in the past. If we look at this season in a vacuum, The 4 best teams right now are the 4 teams I just said. There's a very strong argument to keep Tennessee at 4 versus 5. I think it's very close. I think TCU and Tennessee are a very interesting argument for 4 or 5 right now. But Alabama should be out of the picture. Clemson should be out of the picture. LSU, dark horse if they went out and beat Georgia. I think they have a shot at making the college football playoff if that were to happen, but that's a long ways away from happening. So I think these rankings are fair. I think we should give Oregon some love. They're playing great football. I think we should give TCU some love. They're playing great football. And we shouldn't count out Michigan or Ohio State. I think they both looked very good this season. Neither of them have lost. They're going to play each other at the end of the year, and the winner of that game will go to the college football playoff. So I think these are fair rankings. I don't think we should overreact to an Alabama victory is my whole point. And I was going to make one more argument. This is where it's going to get interesting. This is where it's going to come down to 5 teams. It's the 5 teams I actually just ranked. Georgia, Ohio State. Sorry, it's not the 5 teams I just ranked. It's going to be these 5 teams for 4 spots. Georgia, winner of Ohio State and Michigan, TCU, Oregon, and Tennessee. Those 5 teams are for 4 spots. I think Tennessee, if they don't get the SEC championship, I think they get left out. And I think you got to prioritize conference championships in that situation. But I think that's going to be the interesting debate this year is those 5 teams for the playoff.
Wait, so you think if Tennessee, if Georgia gets into the SEC title game over Tennessee, you think that Tennessee just doesn't get in? I'm curious.
That's no, I think Tennessee would need a little bit more help to get in, though.
I have a question for Trevor.
Yeah,
I think this was something that we discussed yesterday. I agree with most of what you've said to this point. My rankings would be slightly different, but I'd really have the same teams up there. Plus, I'd throw LSU in there. So my question to you would be, if we're considering the importance of winning your conference championship, how would you stack up a 2-loss LSU team who wins out and then beats Georgia in arguably the best conference in football, beating the number 1 team in the country at that point?
Yeah.
While they still have 2 losses, how would you stack up a 2-loss conference champion LSU team versus a 1-loss conference champion Oregon team?
The more I think about it, the more I would put Tennessee at 4 because I forgot they blew out LSU on their home field. So I'm going to preface it with that. A 2-loss LSU team is very interesting because I think it's like a tale of 2 seasons for this LSU team, right? Like you lose week 1 to a bad team, you get blown out on your home field by a really good Tennessee team, but you got blown out. And all of a sudden you beat number 7 Ole Miss, you beat number 6 Bama. Now you're going to get your shot at Georgia in the SEC title game. It's going to depend. I think these rankings this week are going to tell us a lot about how the committee feels about LSU. But for me, I think you have to consider them. An 11-2 LSU team, I think, should be considered for the SEC title game, for the college football playoff. Look, at the end of the day, the SEC is the best conference. They probably will have the best wins if they end up beating Georgia in the title game. So I would consider leapfrogging them over a team like Oregon or a team like TCU. I don't know. I would have to compare the resumes at the end of the season. And look, in my opinion, conference championships are big. So I think winning a conference championship, especially in the best conference in the SEC, is a big deal. And it would be hard for me to leave LSU out. I think you would put in the Big Ten champion. I think if TCU goes undefeated, they would get in that scenario. And then I think you'd go Georgia, even though Georgia has that 1 loss. And then the debate's probably going to be Tennessee, LSU, or Oregon. And that's when I think it gets really interesting because Tennessee would have the head-to-head, but LSU would have the conference championship. And then Oregon is playing great football. And I don't think we should discount Oregon. They're going to go 12-1. They're going to have 4 wins against top 20 teams this year. And I don't think we should discount that resume, but that would be the debate. It would be those 3 teams for that 4th spot in that scenario, in my opinion.
I think it really gets interesting, especially if you do get into that, because, you look at a 1-loss Tennessee team who also blew out a 2-loss LSU team. Right. But if LSU then beats Georgia, who Tennessee couldn't beat to win the conference championship, I think it gets really interesting. Like at that point, I mean, what we've seen in the past from the CFP is they value head-to-head matchups and they value conference championships. So if you get into that scenario, it'd really be like, well, which one do you value more?
I think here's what I think the head is. It's actually so interesting because the head-to-head the head-to-head was such a blowout for Tennessee and LSU. It was so one-sided. But Tennessee just got blown out by Georgia. So for LSU to come in and beat Georgia would make it so, I don't know how you would pick, if I'm being honest. Maybe that second loss would be the difference in the head-to-head. I think they would go with Tennessee in that scenario just by the slimmest of margins, just because of that head-to-head and the second loss. But it's interesting because it's like blowout, but then you beat the team that blew you. I don't even know. It gets very ugly.
No, look, I agree with what you're saying. Look, here's the thing. They should take Tennessee in that situation, but I think they would take LSU because I think recency bias is a big thing. It's just the way it is. I think they should, in that scenario, take Tennessee because, Tennessee beat them by a wider margin than they beat the team that, I think that Tennessee should get priority there, but I don't think they would. I think that LSU beating Georgia, people will be like, whoa, and they beat Bama. I know they had 2 bad losses because look, losing by 27 to Tennessee is a bad loss. I don't care how good Tennessee is. That's a bad loss, If you're considered for the college football playoff, losing by 27, I mean, that's just, that's brutal. It's a similar thing it's unfortunate with Oregon. I'm telling you, it's unfortunate. They lost by 46 week 1, and it's going to be the reason that they don't make the playoff. I feel bad for them. They're playing a great season. They look really good, but everyone's just going to look back to that and be like, who else have they played or beaten that stacks up to a playoff team? What else can they base their resume on? And it's like, no one else really. There's just unfortunately. And you know what I mean? If they had lost by half that margin, I bet that they could easily make the playoff this year. But because it was such a big margin, it's just, that's insurmountable to me. But right, so the same thing goes with LSU here. The margin was so wide against Tennessee. I think that's going to I think that should prevent them from getting in over a team like Tennessee. But we'll see if Tennessee were to win out the rest of the way. But we'll see.
Can I give my prediction?
Yeah, go ahead.
As of right now, I think ultimately it's a 5-team race.
Sure.
And the reason why is because I don't think Oregon wins the next 4 games. If you look at their schedule, it's pretty difficult. They play UW on the road, and then they have a home game against Utah, who's top 15 ranked. And then you're at Oregon State. And then if you win all 3 of those, you have to play the Pac-12 champion from the South, which could be Utah again, could be USC.
No divisions this year. No divisions.
Oh, really?
I didn't know they got rid of it.
It's going to be USC or UCLA then, yeah?
So it'll be USC, UCLA, or Utah. So they've been very good recently. I just can't picture right now them winning out. So that's why I've taken them out of the equation. Not because of the Georgia loss, not because of how they stack up against LSU. I just don't think they go 4-0. And if they do, you'll beat 3 ranked teams right there, 2 probably in the top 15, top 10. You have to consider that at some point. Ultimately, I think it's going to be
I'm
the
glad
winner
you brought
of
up
Ohio
Oregon.
State, Michigan. Georgia's going to get in regardless.
Right.
I think if Tennessee wins out, they're in with the 1 loss to on the road to the number 1 team in the country. And then I think the last spot is between LSU and TCU if they go undefeated. And ultimately, as of right now, if TCU doesn't win out and if Oregon doesn't win out, and I guess you throw USC in there, who we haven't really talked about a ton, but at that point, it's really deciding between the Pac-12 champion. If LSU wins out, I think they have to get in. Just winning in the SEC. Now, will they?
Right.
I don't see that
Georgia,
happening.
that's so hard.
In
Georgia
which case, if they're
good.
a 3-loss team, they're not getting in. And then it's a debate of either the Big 12 or the Pac-12 champ. But I think those are the teams right now that you have to look out.
Eden, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
In this scenario, we say Bama's completely out of it, and I think they are. 98% chance that they're out of it. But in the scenario that LSU were to lose another game, and then Bama were to win out and get into the SEC title game, if they beat Georgia, would you even consider them? I'm just curious.
Oh, true. Because I guess they would be in the
champion. But also 2 losses.
Right. I'm just because 2 losses.
I don't know. I haven't thought of that. I would probably say you'd have to give at that point, if it's a 1-loss Oregon, a 1-loss USC, or an undefeated TCU, I would probably put those teams over Bama just because.
All of them, okay.
I mean, we'd have to see how it works out at the end of the season, but 1 loss versus 2 losses. Although I guess if they would have won the SEC championship,
right?
I just don't think. Yeah. I just don't see. I don't know who LSU plays the rest of the way out, but I just don't. I just don't see Bama getting there, so that's not something I'm really thinking about. Right
I would agree with you. It was just kind of a hypothetical, and I do think LSU is going to win out. They play Arkansas, UAB, and Texas A&M. I mean, like anything can happen with Arkansas and A&M, but like, I mean, they're not great teams this year.
Yeah,
and they've
at this
fallen
point,
off.
and
Yeah.
ultimately, yeah. So you bring up a great point there. Their
Yeah.
next 3 games are easy. So
Mhm.
what does that really do to boost them? Not really much. But if they beat Georgia, I think you got to put them right at the top.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia, can we talk? Georgia is just so much better than everybody else right now. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it
right?
is.
And it's funny and it's interesting though, because Trevor, you were bringing up the point earlier, right? Of like, if you almost lose to a bad team, does that like considerably hurt you, at least in your eyes, right? In terms of your resume, right? We were talking about how Bama almost lost to Texas, right? LA almost lost to Texas A&M, right?
Could have lost to both, yes.
And it's funny. It's just interesting because like even a team like Georgia's toughest game this year was against Missouri. Missouri, you know what I mean? And their average margin. No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's just interesting because their average margin of victory against SEC teams is like 30. It's ridiculous, right? It's not even close for Georgia. And so to have their worst game to be against a team like Missouri, a team that they looked like they were going to lose to for 3 quarters, is just crazy. So to me, the reason I just wanted to bring it up, Trevor, because like I think it's totally fair to put it against the team to struggle a lot. A team that's rolling week over week should be put against above a team that is struggling against poor teams week in, week out. Right? Right. Yeah. I mean, like it's just the way it is, right? Like you're totally right. But my only point is that I think of it like I just don't weigh it as heavily as you, because I see a team even like Georgia, who's just so much better than everybody else. Even they struggled in a week this season against an awful Missouri team. They only won by 4.
I mean, look, I'm not gonna weigh it that heavily. If you're undefeated in the SEC, you're clearly the best team. Like my point is for these borderline teams.
I know.
Let's be consistent here.
Mm-hmm.
If we're gonna knock Oregon and LSU for bad losses, then let's knock every team for bad losses. Like I think we should be fair.
Bad losses, yeah. But I was talking about like near losses.
Oh well, yeah, and close wins. I mean,
yeah.
Look, a close win is better than a bad loss.
Every good team has 1 or 2 of those throughout the course of the season. Like that's just how the season works.
Right.
It's not very often that you blow every team out and you're head and shoulders ahead of everyone else. So I
agree.
Yeah.
I'm saying when you already have 2 losses and you want to be considered for anything, then you shouldn't. Like I just
that's fair. That's fair. I just wanted to bring that up because I was just explaining why I maybe think of it wait a little bit less. But
I want to touch on Oregon real quick. I do want to touch on Oregon real quick before we dip out.
I was going to give my 4 after,
because we're sleeping on Oregon, and here's why Oregon's going to win out. Their 2 biggest games left on their schedule are at home. They're a dominant team at home. We already saw what they did to BYU, who was ranked 12th at the time. They beat them by 3 touchdowns. They killed UCLA at home a couple weeks ago, right? They get Washington and Utah at home. I think they win both of those games, and both of those teams are going to be ranked. Washington is 7-2. They will be ranked next week. Utah is going to be somewhere in the top 10, right around 10 when they play each other. Let's say they beat Oregon State, and then let's say they get USC and beat USC in the Pac-12 title game. So your resume is you beat BYU, and then you beat the other 4 best teams in the Pac-12, Utah, UCLA, Washington, and USC. That's 5 quality wins. How does a team like Oregon then not get in if hypothetically LSU were to lose to Georgia? So if it came down to Tennessee and Oregon for that 4th spot, let's say
what about TCU?
Wins out. Let's say TCU wins out, because I don't think the Big 12 is that great right now. I don't know who they have left on their schedule. They do play Texas.
It's not much, but then again, you got to play the Big 12 championship game.
Yep.
Right. So I'll just assume TCU wins out, and I'll just assume that the winner of Ohio State, Michigan wins out, and then Georgia wins out. Tennessee and Oregon, 11-1 versus 12-1. Who has the better resume? I'm curious.
That's a really good question. I love that question. I think you got to think about it in the sense
they have the same loss, right? They have the common opponent with the loss.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, the losses are similar because they both weren't competitive games. Oregon was obviously worse, right? They lost by 40 points, right? There's no. I could make excuses for why Oregon lost by 46, right? But at the end of the day, they did. But then I think Oregon with the conference championship and the 5 ranked wins, I think that's an interesting argument, but.
It really is.
I mean, it's
I don't know.
an interesting argument. I mean, I think that, you know, you look at the teams that Oregon would have beaten, right? I mean, like, I know they beat a 12th ranked BYU team, but they're 5-5 now. Like, you know, they beat UCLA, which is a really good win. That was a really good win. I mean, top 10 team winning by double digits. That was a great win. If they would beat Utah, that's a good win. Oregon State, I don't think is ranked anymore because didn't they just lose? I believe
they did just lose to Washington, right?
Yeah. So I mean, like, you look at and then you go to Tennessee, and they'll have beaten Pitt, who I don't believe is ranked anymore, but they did win this past week, I think. Pitt is now, they're definitely
5-4.
They're 5-4. They beat Florida. They blew out LSU. They beat Bama. They beat Kentucky, who's no longer ranked, but they crushed them, so they're not ranked anymore. And then they lost to Georgia. Yeah, it's more similar than I'd like to admit, to be honest with you. I would. You know what I'm going to say? I would just lean towards the conference that I think is a little bit better. I think the resumes are really similar. Like, they're really similar. But I'd lean towards the conference I think is just a little bit better. But looking in a vacuum, like, it's really close. I will say it's very close. And you can make a valid argument for Oregon. Like, you can. I just think that, you know, the conference is a little bit worse, and I think that would be the margin if they both had one.
And that 49-3 loss is hard to get out of your head.
It's just hard, yeah. Like I said, Trevor, right? Because they'll just keep going back to it, no matter. Because you're right, there's excuses for it. I mean, look, there are a new quarterback, right? Was it a new coach or no? I'm sorry.
Maybe new quarterback, first game, no preseason. It was a de facto road game. We can call it a neutral site, but it was in Atlanta, right? That's a de facto road game, if you ask me.
That's fair. But right, so my point is,
it would have been 49-3 now, but
yeah, it's just unfortunate for Oregon. But yeah, that would be my take, Eden. I don't think
you can just write TCU in that case. I think that would be a 3-team discussion.
Okay. I agree.
And
TCU goes undefeated.
And even if TCU is undefeated, I think that's a 3-team discussion. And one point that Ryan brought up that I really liked was you gotta look at the conference and say which conference is better. And ultimately, this season, I think the Pac-12 is better than the Big 12. So that's another consideration you have to make. If you lose, yes, you get killed, but you lose to a team that went undefeated, who won the national championship last year, who's the number 1 team in the country this year. Like, that's your one loss versus, you know, TCU gets an extra win against whoever. Like, I don't even know who's bad in the Big 12. West Virginia. They have an extra win against West Virginia, and that's why they're undefeated.
Right.
Like, I think that would be a 3-team discussion. And I think where we stand as of now is I still believe Tennessee will be ranked above TCU.
Yeah.
Now, will that change with TCU and Oregon winning their conferences and Tennessee not playing in the championship game? Who knows? But I think as of right now, Tennessee is still the better team. And that's where it's going to be as of this week.
And you bring up a good point about TCU that I just want to say, like, also I was going through their games this season. And here's the thing. The Big 12 is worse than the Pac-12 this year. It's true. Like, I like to make fun of Trevor, but the Pac-12 I don't think is great, but I do think it's better than the Big 12. It just is. The Big 12 is not great this year.
The Pac-12, I think we're doing all right.
I mean,
how's
like,
the AAC this year, right?
Hey, look, we're gonna keep talking about the Big 12. Anyway, TCU,
not a lot of defense in the AAC this year, right?
Yeah, not really. Hey, shout out to my SB Mustangs, 77 points yesterday, easy dub over Houston. But wow, what a game! We only gave up 63, so we won. Wow. But anyway,
that's less than you scored. So yes.
Yes. My point about TCU, you look at their games, right? And they're not blowing even bad teams out. And when you're looking at a team like Oregon, right? And Trevor, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm getting the impression that a lot of Oregon's games aren't all that close. Right,
they're steamrolling everybody.
Right, so Washington State was a tough game. They almost lost that, but since then, last 5 weeks, they've been fantastic. Right, Stanford, 18-point gap. U of A, 27-point gap.
Let's not talk about that one.
UCLA, 15-point gap. Cal, 18-point gap, and then Colorado, 39-point gap. Right, you go over to a team like TCU, and even if they go undefeated, their conference is worse, and they're beating teams like West Virginia by 10, Texas Tech by 10, Kansas by 7. Oak State was a good win.
Good, though.
This is what I hate about college.
That was a road game at Kansas, and they were like 15. But anyway,
how you win shouldn't matter. How you win shouldn't matter, but it does.
Well, you talk about how it matters. You talk about how it matters if you almost lose. So why does it not matter?
No, it matters, but I'm saying it shouldn't. I'm saying it shouldn't.
Really, margin of victory shouldn't be relevant.
No, because you win, right? Like
I mean, I don't know if I would go that far.
This is the complete opposite of what he was saying earlier.
If you win, because Eden, if you win by a lot versus if you win by
Baylor
a
should
little,
be 5-4. Oh, but it doesn't matter how you win.
It doesn't matter. No,
I'm saying how you win. I'm saying how you win shouldn't matter is my point. But it does.
Okay, whatever. Look. I think that margin of victory when you're comparing two teams head to head should be a factor. If one team's blowing teams out and the other team's barely scraping by, I'm probably going to take the team that's blowing teams out. Like, I'm sorry. I think that's a little bit relevant. And maybe
in a scenario when one team goes on.
And now look, let me tell you this. Maybe if it's an SEC team, maybe I would come a little slack, because it's more, it's a little tougher. But it's the Big 12, I mean, come on, you're scraping by against West Virginia. Like I'm sorry, I'm not impressed. Like, it's just the way it is. But TCU's having a great season either way. Look, we can move on. I never gave my top 4, so I kind of do.
I want to hear it.
I kind of do want to do that. Let me make sure I'm good with it though. Hold on. I need to make sure I'm okay with it.
While he's doing that, I have my shout out
Go ahead.
for the week. It is college football related, which is why I feel inclined to do it now.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ben Morrison. Do either of you two know who Ben Morrison is?
No, sir.
Brophy grad, that's all I know.
He's a freshman corner this year at Notre Dame. Okay. He picked off DJ, I don't know how to say his last name, 2 times last night, one of which he returned pick 6 for a touchdown about 95 yards.
Wow.
Freshman starting corner at Notre Dame, graduated with my brother from Brophy last year. Congrats to that guy, and what a big win for Notre Dame football. Love to see Marcus Freeman, after that tough start that he had, really starting to turn it around now, and hopefully they'll be better for the future. But Notre Dame's starting to figure it out a little bit, and shout out to Ben Morrison.
Well, appreciate that shout out. Whatever, Notre Dame beat Clemson, which I'm happy about. They exposed them for being fraudulent. I was very happy about that yesterday.
Wait, am I arguing that margin of victory matters or doesn't matter?
But you're saying it doesn't matter.
We don't know.
Yeah, you're saying it doesn't matter, but then you said if you barely lose, then that should be knocked against you. So, or barely win, that should be put against you. So I don't know.
You're right. Margin of victory matters. You're right.
Thank you. Yes.
I was just saying
we can cut the last 3 minutes of our pod.
No. I'm just saying in a perfect world, ideally, it should be truly just about wins and losses. But in college football, it is about how you win.
I think there's nuance, just like in the NFL, there'd be nuance. But
like there's no nuance in the NFL.
Okay, not in terms of I'm saying from our perception, right? It should matter.
I'm just talking about sheer playoff rankings. That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, problem
from our perception,
it's a whole different thing.
It's a different system. I'm just saying it shouldn't be as reliable.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I got it. It shouldn't be as big of a factor as it is. I get it. Look, for me, I'll make this quick. Look, Georgia's easily, obviously, number 1. This isn't even a question. I think Ohio State's 2. I think we all agree on that. And wow, Clemson losing really makes me happy. This really mixes it up. Tennessee, I think still. Tennessee still has to be 3. No, they're gonna put Michigan above them. I guess Michigan should be 3. I guess.
Well, do your rankings. Don't do what you think.
I just don't think Michigan's. I don't
Michigan's
think
fraudulent.
Michigan's all
you
that.
Heard it here first. They're fraudulent.
I do think they're fraudulent.
I would put them at 4 and Tennessee at 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with it then. You've inspired me. I'm gonna stick with it then. Tennessee at 3, and then I think you have to put Michigan at 4. But can I just say, like, who has Michigan beaten? Like, anybody?
That's a good point.
Dude. Can I be crazy? Can I put TCU at 4? Like, sorry, who's Michigan beaten? I'm actually not kidding. Hold on.
Penn State. That's it. That's their one ranked win.
Yeah,
this year.
And TCU has beaten 1, 2, 3, 4 ranked teams, and they're playing
Yeah, Michigan's not for real. They won't beat Ohio State, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, let's put TCU at 4. Let's put TCU at 4. Look, both are undefeated. The Big 12's, I guess, a little. The Big 10's not even that good, Trevor. The Big 10's not even that good.
It's not.
It's really not.
It's horrible, actually.
Yeah. So I don't think that's that crazy. Yeah, TCU should be at 4. They won't be, but I think it's totally reasonable. Right? Am I crazy over here? Like, is this like a crazy take? Yeah.
Michigan will lose to Ohio State, and then we won't have to talk about them ever again. So that's
if they do beat Ohio State, wow. Chaos.
They're not. I don't know if Michigan's fraudulent. I
don't think Ohio State is all that either, but they're better than Michigan. So
I would agree.
It's gonna. I mean, the winner of that game goes to the playoffs, so we'll put it that way. But.
I just think Stroud's good enough to carry that team. I just think he's really
good.
I mean, we're talking nonsense about Michigan. Ohio State was in a dogfight with Northwestern.
To be fair, right? it was like 30-mile-an-hour winds. Like they couldn't throw the ball.
True, but Northwestern 1-8.
That's really bad. That's really bad.
There's no defending that. Beat Rutgers by 35, right? Like,
but Trevor, they were losing by 3 at halftime.
Okay, but they ended up winning by 35.
I know, you're right.
Oh, now we're talking about margin of victory again?
It matters. I just don't like that.
Let's move on to the NFL.
Yes.
It obviously matters, but I prefer a system where it shouldn't matter.
Thank you. But if you barely win, then that should be put against you.
Well, yeah, it should in college football, yes. But if they change the system to where how you win doesn't matter, then no, it doesn't mean as much.
Why are we
right?
still talking about this?
I know.
This is over.
Are you guys not understanding this? You put in a playoff system.
I understand.
We understand. We're just having fun with it. We're just having fun with it. We get it.
Am I making no sense?
No. I know what you're saying.
So, never mind.
No. Okay, look, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to the NFL here. And look, it's been a couple of weeks. I wanted to hear from each of you. And I know what Eden's going to bring up because whatever, but I wanted to hear from each of you. What's a team, it's been a couple weeks. What's a team that you've been really disappointed in the halfway mark through the season or about the halfway point? Or a team that you've been really impressed by? I'm curious. I need to know. Is there a team that stands out? I know there's a bunch of them, but I want to hear which one stands out to both of you. So look, I think Eden already has his. I feel like he has
the one that we're disappointed.
I feel like I know what it is.
The one that we really like.
You can do either or. Like we can do both if you want.
I'm gonna start with my disappointed team because I was right on them at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Not necessarily that they'd perform this bad, but that they would be in a dogfight for their division, and they currently sit 2 games under 500. And it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I said at the beginning of the year with all this Tom and Giselle stuff, he was not going to be locked into the game, which is not necessarily true because he's been the only good part of that team. It's just the wide receivers can't get separation. They keep dropping the football. The defense now is super banged up, so they're giving up a ton of points. And you lose. Did they lose back-to-back road divisional games or something like that? They definitely lost to Carolina. They were in a dogfight. They were in a dogfight with the Falcons. That's what I was saying.
They beat the Falcons.
They beat the Falcons, and then they've lost to the Steelers, Panthers, and Ravens are the 3 losses.
Yeah, and you lose to the Steelers. Those are some terrible losses. And I know Tom Brady's not getting a ton of help. I don't know how all this taking Wednesdays off, trying to figure it out with his wife, trying to go through the divorce. That's probably affecting him a little bit, but at the same time, he's not the one at fault for this team's struggles. It's the offensive line, it's the defense, it's the wide receivers, it's everyone but him. And at the beginning of the season, I said I wouldn't be surprised if the New Orleans Saints pushed them to win the division. And those 2 teams sit at 3 and 5 right now, while the leader in the clubhouse is Atlanta at 500. So again, I wasn't necessarily right there. I wasn't necessarily right there, at least through the halfway point of the season, but I think, with time, the Carolina Panthers will fall off. This might be an 8 and 9 win division, division winner. And I don't know who it's going to be at this point between those other 3 teams. I really don't have a ton of faith in the Tampa Bay Bucs. I think they lose at home today against the Rams, who have been another team that's been disappointing. But honestly, I'm 100% off the Bucs bandwagon at this point. From what I've seen from them, they need a major turnaround if I think they're going to make the postseason.
Yeah, I was going to jump in on this for a second, Eden. I was going to bring them up if you didn't, so I'm glad you did. Look, you hit the nail on the head here. I literally disagree with nothing you said. It's not Tom. I'm glad you called it out. It's Tom Brady. He might have some off the field distractions. He probably does. I mean, he most definitely does. But the guy's 45, and he's. I think he's the best player on that team, right?
I think
he's thrown one pick, and I think he has 2 fumbles. Yeah. And he's putting up yards. Look, here's the thing: you gotta to really understand what's happening. You have to watch this team, And I watched them. What was it? Just last week against the Ravens, and what you see, the offense just feels so different. It feels they're playing so tight. I think it's the best word to describe it. They're playing so tense, so tightly. They're not loose. They're not like a gunslinging team like they've been in the last couple of seasons. And they have the very similar roster. That's the weird thing. The roster's not that different. there's two things that are the possibility here, or three, to be honest, for the offense. One, the O-line's just gotten a lot worse, and that's been a big problem. I think that's a big issue. I think the O-line's had a couple of injuries. I think they had a guy retire from the O-line this past season. And I think that's hurt them. Because O-line play, as we know, is super, super important to a team's success. I think that's a big problem. Two, the receivers are just undisciplined. If you watch this team, Brady is screaming at receivers, and sometimes it looks like he's making a bad throw. And maybe it is, but he's telling them, you're not in the spot. They're not breaking at the right spot. They're not breaking at the right time. They're not looking for the ball. And it's like the timing's just off. And he's like, it's just like, what else can Brady, like, he can't put them in the right spot. It's just so hard. He's yelling at Kyle Rudolph. He's yelling at Julio, right? I see this last week against the Ravens, and it's just, that's undisciplined. You got to be better than that, especially as a Hall of Famer in Julio. You have to be better than that. So it's all the receivers, but those are just the ones I remember seeing specifically. That has to be better, and that's another big problem. So it could be that as well, right? And then the third thing is look at the coaching staff. Look what's different. Bruce Arians isn't down on the field anymore. He's still involved with the organization, but he's up in the booth now, right? He's I believe he's an executive of sorts for the team, right? So who knows? Maybe that has a role in, the effectiveness of the offense, maybe. Or who knows? Maybe it's just because they don't have Antonio Brown. I mean, who knows? This guy, they had him for the last 2 years. And look, he was dynamic. He was fantastic. And then he just walked off the field, and the offense hasn't looked the same since, to be honest with you. So maybe this team, Trevor,
is pretty generous.
I know.
He did something. We'll put it that
way. Trevor, maybe this team crashed and burned with Antonio Brown. Who knows? But look, it's a multitude of issues, but Eden hit the nail on the head. I just want to call it a few more specific things. This team just looks tight. And the Rams and the Bucs are playing today, and we'll see what happens there. Trevor, do you want to talk about the Bucs before I go to my team? Because I was going to talk about the Rams, actually.
Yeah, I'll touch on the Bucs. You guys covered them well. And today's matchup is the battle of disappointments, for real.
Right. Exactly.
2 under 500 teams. I think another issue with Tampa Bay is their inability to finish drives in the red zone. I think that's what's hurting their offense. They settled for 4 field goals last game against Baltimore, which was ultimately their demise.
Yep.
I think their inability to run the ball, which is a lot of it has to do with the offensive line, but their inability to run the ball has hurt them and made them one-dimensional. Mm-hmm. And look, I think Tom deserves some of the blame. I don't think he's been as good as he's been in prior years. I still think he's missing some guys. You guys are right. He doesn't deserve the bulk of it. But if we want to bring up Bruce Arians, Tom Brady wanted Bruce Arians out, right? Like, Tom Brady didn't want him as his head coach. He handpicked Todd Bowles. So if we're going to blame that, I blame Tom a little bit for that. And this team is just destroyed on the defensive end. I'm looking at their injuries right now. I'm just going to read this off to you guys because I can't think of a starter that's playing for this team on defense. Sean Murphy-Bunting, Carlton Davis, Akeem Hicks, Antoine Winfield, Shaq Barrett, Logan Ryan. I mean, they're missing like 6 starters on the defensive end. Who's in that secondary is the real question. I don't know. So I think injuries, I think the inability to finish drives, I think all of it has been kind of hurting Tampa Bay. And the off the field distractions are hard. I think Tom is dealing with a lot right now. I don't feel bad for him. I think he's brought this on himself, but he is dealing with it. And it's affecting him at least a little bit. He just, there's a lot more of a temper this year with Tom. It just seems a little bit more apparent that he's just angry. He's beating up tablets. He's yelling at guys a lot more. And I don't know if that's all because they're all in the wrong spots and they don't know how to run routes. Like, it's Mike Evans, it's Julio Jones, it's guys that Tom Brady has played with in the past, right? I just think there's a little bit of a quick trigger right now with Tom. I just think he's a little on edge. And again, it's all his fault.
Tom's just feeling a little angry.
Yeah, he is. I mean, it's all his fault. He brought it on himself, in my opinion. So I don't feel bad.
Wait, what do you mean?
Reality.
Well, we don't have to get into this. I mean, the guy just wants to do his job. Everyone works in life, whatever. I guess he brought it on himself.
That's just a terrible. That was one of the worst takes you've ever had. But anyways, it's just apparent that Tom's on edge, and I just think that's affecting the entire vibe of the locker room. And that's where I blame Tom a little bit.
Wow.
I mean, he lied to his wife about unretiring and then didn't tell her. I mean, of course she's going to be.
We don't know all the conversations they've had behind the scenes. We have no idea what they talk about. Look, we don't have to get into this. Everyone,
I just think he brought this on himself. That's my thing. That's my only argument.
I mean, if a wife forces you to quit your job, I mean, whatever. I mean, no one else, that doesn't happen to anyone else in life.
So then why did she quit her job to raise her kids? She sacrificed.
I mean, if someone had to raise the kids, I suppose. It's typically how it goes, right?
But, like,
how often do you see a divorce
she
happen? Just like
sacrificed for years. I don't feel bad
Okay.
for Tom. She sacrificed
Okay, whatever.
for years to raise that family. Tom retires, makes a promise to her that he's done, and then lies to her and doesn't tell her.
How do we know
that
what
he's
he
going back
promised?
to
We have
play
no
football.
idea. We have no idea.
Well, I mean, he
Okay.
retired, so.
All right, look, that's a conversation for another time. Look, the Bucs, we'll see if they can step up. The Rams are another story, by the way. I wanted to talk about the Rams for a minute because they are a major disappointment, and it's honestly funny. Look, there was talk about Matthew Stafford being a top 5 quarterback after the Super Bowl, and I just didn't understand it. And you look at him this year, and he has been abysmal. He has been awful. I mean, he has been so bad. I don't know off the top of my head how many turnovers he's had, but he's had quite a few. He's had 7 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He has more interceptions than he does touchdowns this season. He's been really bad. And a lot of this is because of the O-line, by the way. The O-line has become a lot worse. The O-line is awful for the Rams. That's a lot of the reason for their struggles this season. But Stafford has struggled because of that, and also in addition to that. Like, it's just been a compilation of things, and it's been really disappointing. Yeah, Stafford's not a top 10 quarterback, in my opinion. He's just outside that top 10. I stand by that, and I think I was right about that. You see him this year. He does not look like a top 10 quarterback at all. He doesn't even look like a top 15 quarterback, to be honest with you. And the O-line's been really bad. The run game's been non-existent. The defense has been average. The whole team just doesn't look that good. And so they've just been a really big disappointment to me. The O-line and Stafford in particular. But you know what I mean? Their losses aren't awful. I mean, right? You look at their losses. They lost to the Cowboys, the Niners twice, and the Bills. Those aren't bad losses, but they're getting blown out in every single one. I mean, these are double-digit losses across the board. And you're the Super Bowl winner from this past season. You got to be better than that. I mean, that's just unacceptable, right? So they've just been disappointing. I think they'll turn it around with a little bit of an easier second half schedule, but it's not a cakewalk. And some of these teams they're playing are really talented. So we'll see how it goes. I'm disappointed in them, but to me, it's pretty simple. It's the O-line and Stafford. And if that doesn't get fixed, then they might not even make the playoffs. Now the NFC is insanely weak, so it's a pretty easy path to get in. But they might not make the playoffs. They're really struggling right now. So I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add. I just wanted to bring them up because they've been a big disappointment. Super Bowl winner this bad with the same roster. Ugh.
I agree with pretty much everything you just said. Jack and I defended Stafford a lot last season. We talked about how it was so dysfunctional in Detroit, and now he comes to LA first year. He wins a Super Bowl, right? Like, he should be heralded as a top tier quarterback, and he's not been good this year. And look, I know he's had an ongoing elbow thing that kind of affected him in the offseason. I don't want to make any excuses. I don't know if that's played a little bit of a role in his injuries. I think the Rams are really missing OBJ. I really do. I think OBJ made life so much easier for everybody else on that team. He gave Stafford a true number 2 to throw to. He opened things up for Cooper Kupp. He'd opened things up for guys like Tyler Higbee and Ben Skoranek and Van Jefferson, some of these other utility guys.
Van Jefferson.
So I think OBJ not being in the picture is a big loss for the Rams. Andrew Whitworth not being in the picture anymore is a big loss for the Rams. And this team just feels a little bit older. They just feel a little bit outdated. Is Aaron Donald past his prime? Is Jalen Ramsey past his prime? Stafford feels a little older. I don't know. I just think the Rams feel a little outdated. They feel a little last year, as the kids would say back in the day. But at the end of the day, the Rams were off to a bit of a slow start last season. I think they were 7-5 through 12 games, which, look, that's better than 3-4, but they turned it on at the end of the season. They got OBJ. They ended up, winning the Super Bowl, obviously. So I'm not ready to count them out. They're only 3-4. They're in a very winnable division. Well, they're actually in a hard division, but a winnable division. They're in a very weak NFC, as Ryan mentioned. So I'm not ready to cancel the Rams and basically call it quits. They have a lot of winnable games left on the schedule, in my opinion. But yeah, there's concerns on this. Stafford has been really bad this year. There's no other way around it. I've defended him. I've argued for him, but he's been terrible, and he needs to play better if they want to have a chance to, make the playoffs and win a playoff game. So all I got to say. McVay is still handsome, though. Very handsome, but
Trevor, you'll appreciate this news. In my pick of the week this week, the Atlanta Falcons LA Chargers game, the Falcons just scored an opening drive touchdown with score, Daryl.
Let's go. I started him in fantasy. Eden, I love that.
There we go. That's my pick of the week. Anyways,
I have 2 picks: Dolphins -4, Bengals -7. Those are your 2 locks with cough of the week.
Wow.
But to get back to this Rams point, I think this has always been the thing with Stafford, right? Is he's very not. I was gonna say efficient. He's not efficient. He is effective with boosting his numbers because he throws so much, but he also takes a lot of chances and throws a lot of picks. Like, I think last year he still had 16, 17 picks during the season. And that was, if Jaquaski Tart doesn't drop that ball in the NFC Championship game, they're not champions. Like, just a duck that he just dropped.
Yep.
But anyways, I do think the elbow injury from this offseason has bothered him a little bit.
Maybe.
And they're just not as good this year. Trevor said they're missing all those guys. I think they're more banged up than people think. They're just not effective on offense, and I don't think it's anything to do with like Sean McVay not.
I would agree.
Like being the mind there anymore.
Right.
I just think it's you lose guys like Odell, you lose Whitworth, you lose on the defensive side of the ball. You don't have Von Miller there to create that havoc.
Yeah,
like they're just not as good of a team as they were last year.
Right. Von Miller, that's another one. It's a good one.
I think the Niners are the best team in the division, while Seattle looks really damn good.
They do.
They were going to be my team for who I was most surprised by, and I legitimately think that they could win the division this year.
Yeah.
I think the Niners now are going to start to figure it out, though. So I don't see that happening, but they could, and at worst, they could definitely be a top 7 team in the NFC in a weak NFC. But we're just gonna have to see going forward. But the Rams are not all that either, although I do think they're still better than the Bucs, and that's why I'm picking them today. But if you had to ask the question, which team do you have more faith in right now, the Bucs or the Rams? I would say the Rams. I'm curious what you two would answer.
Ooh, good question.
I would lean towards the Bucs, to be honest. And the only reason I say that is because I have a little more trust in their quarterback right now. I just think that like the quarterback struggles have been right. Like the struggles of the teams have been different, right? I think it's more QB focused for the Rams and the Bucs, and I think that's easier to fix if you're the Rams than if you're the Bucs. But I think they've just both been disappointing. Trevor, what do you think?
I agree with Ryan. I think I'm a little bit more on the Bucs bandwagon over the Rams at this point. I think Brady's playing good enough football. I have my qualms with him off the field, but he's playing good football. And the Bucs are beat up. I think if they can get their receivers fully healthy and if they can get some guys in the secondary back, I still think they have a very, very good roster. So I would bet on the Bucs over the Rams right now. But
who do we think wins
I want
today?
to talk about a team. I want to talk about a team that you guys are not thinking right now. You're not going to get. You want who I'm thinking about? Anyone?
Huh? No. Who is it?
I'll give you hints in the NFC.
It's in the NFC. Is it a team that you like? The Cowboys?
Nope. I'm going to give you a team that I actually don't love, but is undefeated. The Philadelphia Eagles. And I want to pump the brakes on this Eagles team a little bit.
I do not love the Eagles.
Are we sure this Eagles team is legit? Are we sure this Eagles team is legit?
Eden, do you hear this?
Yes.
I want to go through their wins. The Lions, barely. Vikings, good win. Commanders, Jags, Matt Amendola, Cooper Rush, Steelers, Texans. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to make a bet right now on this podcast. The Philadelphia Eagles will not win one playoff game. They are going to lose first round of the playoffs.
I agree with you. I actually agree with you.
San Fran, far more dangerous football team. Dallas, I think with Dak, is a better football team.
I agree.
And don't sleep on the Buccaneers. They might get healthy at the right time.
Yes,
Jalen Hurts versus Tom Brady, you never know.
Yes, sir.
But I want to talk about the Eagles. I love what they're doing. I love Jalen Hurts. I'm actually very happy for Jalen Hurts because he is one of the hardest working, humble sports athletes I can think of, right? Alabama gave up on him for Tua. He transfers to Oklahoma. He has a great year, goes to the playoff with Lincoln Riley, gets drafted, kind of waits for a year or two. I don't think he started right away. Played last year, looked good, but didn't look great. But this year he has really taken another step and he has played unbelievable football. All the credit to him. He deserves all the props and give the GM a lot of props, bringing in guys like AJ Brown, Darius Slay, guys to really bolster this roster. But I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced this team is they're a Super Bowl contender in the weak NFC, right? But I'm not convinced they're a top 2 or 3 team in the NFC. If I had to bet today, I just said it. I would take the 49ers and the Cowboys over this team. I look at this cakewalk of a schedule that the Eagles have had. And let's go through their next 5 games. The
boy.
Commanders at home, Indianapolis, Green Bay at home, Tennessee at home, Giants at home, at Chicago.
Frauds.
This team should be 14-0. And then they go to Dallas on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
This Philadelphia team, this gives me Packers vibes a little bit. We fall in love with what the Packers have done in the regular season.
Cardinals
and then look what they do in the playoffs. They disappoint every year. They disappoint to who? The San Francisco 49ers every year in the playoffs. I'm not going to make that same mistake with Philadelphia. They should have lost to my Arizona Cardinals if we had a better kicker, but Steve Keim, F you. And I'm not a believer. I'm a believer to the extent that I think they're a good football team, but I would not pick them to win one playoff game right now. I'm going Niners and Cowboys all day. NFC title game, book it with Kaufman.
Here's the thing, Eden, I know you're going to disagree. I'm just going to say I do agree with Trevor in the sense of I do think that they are not as good as the 1 seed. I don't think they're as good as their undefeated record says they are. They've been impressive. Look, they've been impressive this year. They're better than I thought they would be. I'm sure they're better than Trevor thought they would be. You know, I didn't think their defense would make the jump it did. The defense, they've gotten James Bradbury. They've gotten a bunch of pieces in the secondary. Darius Slay's still there. I think it looks really nice. I think they've done a really good job. The O-line is much, much, much improved. It's one of the top O-lines in football now. But, you know, you have to look at the teams they're beating. You just have to. And it's the same thing with the Giants. Why do Trevor and I keep saying the Giants are fraudulent? Because they're beating teams that really aren't very good, right? And the Eagles
beating them.
And barely beating them. Yeah, a margin of victory, baby. And at least the Eagles, you know, are beating, teams by a little wider margin generally. But, I think that they just haven't had that marquee win yet. They really just haven't. And I want to see it. I want to see it. They do give me Packers vibes. They do give me Arizona Cardinals 2021 vibes.
Well, how dare you?
We'll see what happens. But I do agree. The Cowboys, I think, are the best team in the NFC East. They deserve to win the division, whether they do or not. I think they're the best team.
Well,
I think they're the best team. But it's neither here nor there. So I actually do agree with Trevor. But both things can be true. They can be a little overrated, and they can still be a really good football team. I think both things are true. I just think that there's a couple teams in the NFC that are better than them. I don't think they're the best team in the NFC like they, technically are right now.
Ryan, you are beautiful. I just wanted to say that. You are just amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Here's my thing. I disagree with you two in the fact that they're not legit. I think they're the best team in football far and away, and it's not even close.
In football?
In football. Right now.
What?
Right now.
Trevor, there's no way you're serious.
No, I'm dead serious. Let me finish. I think they're the best team in football right now. Okay. What I will say is that they're very young, and when that comes to the playoffs, just like in basketball, just like in baseball, any sport in the playoffs is different from the regular season.
Hey, not the 2021 Phoenix Suns, though.
More so when it's a one-and-done game versus a best-of-7 series. Yep. So that's where I don't disagree with you in the fact that they could lose their first game at home. But this is what I'm thinking. And I'm really considering, Trevor, if you're willing to make that a bet, I'm really considering that. And this is why I think they win at least one playoff game. I'm assuming that they are going to be the 1 seed in football. And what that means is, A, they get a bye week. Yep. And B, after the first week, they will reseed so that the lowest seed plays the 1 seed.
I forgot they do that now. That's a good point.
I forgot
they do that.
So the lowest seed to advance will go to Philadelphia. And as someone who currently lives in Philadelphia with school and watching the Philadelphia Phillies play their World Series run that ended last night, the fans here are insane. And you think about that for a baseball game, right? Like how intimidating that has to be there. But now you're playing on the road in Philadelphia in the postseason. You think false starts. You think miscommunication, dumb penalties. Like, I think that's where Philadelphia has such an edge. That's where Philadelphia has such an edge that at this point in the season, at being 8-0 and after seeing this whole run, think about this. before Game 5 of the Phillies, they brought Meek Mill onto the field, and he performed Dreams and Nightmares. I was at the bar across the street from the stadium. The entire place was rocking. The stadium was rocking. The bar was rocking. Everything was rocking. I can't imagine that for 60 minutes of a football game and this team right now losing. So I'm curious if you would make that a bet. I think I'd probably.
Yes, right now, $20. I'll make it a bet they don't win a playoff game.
I will do it for $20.
All right.
Here's the problem.
I already wrote it down, Eden. I already wrote it down.
This lowest seed thing.
Between me and Trevor.
This lowest seed thing is throwing me off because there's a very good chance they're going to get a team like the Cardinals or the Falcons.
Look who sets up. Trevor, the Rams or the Bucs could be a low seed.
That's
true. It could be, and I think they could go
into Philly and win.
Or the Niners.
I think the Niners are going to win the division, but
if they don't,
I mean, look, if I'm making this bet, I'm taking the risk that maybe they'll see a Niners or a Rams or a Bucs, but they also could see a Seattle or a Cardinals or a Falcons or someone like that. So I don't know if I'm ready to commit to that. The lowest seed throws me off.
He just said he was willing to bet on it.
I forgot the lowest seed argument. Okay,
don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I bet.
All right, yeah, you know what? Throw me in $20.
I was gonna say this is the second time on the potty's backtrack today. So are we agreeing to that?
Yes.
$20.
The lowest seed is a little tricky. I'm sorry.
Right, Trevor and I, you heard it here first. But anyways,
I'm doing it too, Eden. But yeah, let's do it.
I'm throwing money. I'm betting. I'm throwing my money on it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay. Here's my thing.
Perfect.
I'm only betting 20, so it can be 10 to each of you, or that's my.
So now Eden's not as sure.
Well.
I said I wasn't as sure. I said this team's young, but I just can't imagine at this point right now. But we're also happy.
But Meek Mill.
What if Jalen Hurts gets hurt?
10 each. Sure. Okay. 10 each. 10 each. Sure.
All right, I'll do that. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Deal.
Okay.
I gotta pay rent anyways. I'm good with that.
Look, I don't know. That's enough on the Eagles. Look, I there's not too much I want to say other than I was going to bring up my Miami Dolphins before we wrap up this pod. I wanted to bring them up because, a little more, just a little more Tua talk, is just what Trevor needed. Look, Eden, tell me I'm wrong. They're undefeated when Tua plays. When he finishes the game, they're undefeated.
When he finishes the game, yeah.
When he finishes the game.
Besides the time that
he got paralyzed on the field. Yeah.
Yeah.
Besides that
time, they're undefeated.
Besides that time, they're undefeated. But Eden.
And they just scored a touchdown.
Yeah, they're not that good though. Tua's not. I mean, they're just not. They're not that good. The Dolphins, they might be undefeated with their starting quarterback, but are they really that good? They beat Buffalo, but I'm messing around. Look, Miami, I think is really good. Tua's undefeated this season, and I think that continues today. They're already winning right now. I think that they will easily slide into a wild card spot. Don't rule them out to steal the division. I mean, look. Oh, well, actually, I lied. They have 3 losses. Probably not. But if they beat Buffalo again, it's not the craziest thing. I really like this team. I think that their offense is really dynamic. And I will say it's wild that they're this good with literally the worst O-line in football. I mean, it's a bottom 2 O-line, bottom 3 O-line. Again this year. Last year was the worst. This year it's like bottom 2 or 3. It's really bad. And it's kind of a marvel that Mike McDaniel and Tua are able to work it in a way that they can still be successful and put up points on offense with this bad of an O-line. I think it's spectacular. And it shows you that like a team like the Rams,
good.
A team
like I thought Waddle scored the touchdown. My bad. Sorry.
A team like look at this guy over here. A team like the Rams, needs to figure out what the Dolphins are doing, because with the bad O-line, it seems to sink a lot of teams. But look at the Dolphins; they're still scoring points, putting up a lot of points week over week with a bad O-line. So I got to give props to the coaching staff, McDaniel and Tua. And I think the defense has talent. It hasn't really been that good the last few weeks, but I think that they'll tighten up as the season goes on. I think that tends to happen with defenses as they learn the system and learn to play together. But we'll see. I think anyway, I just want to bring them up because I think that Tua has been really good. I think that he deserves respect. I think McDaniel should be coach of the year right now. I think he should be the favorite, unless Sirianni could. It's Sirianni or Mike McDaniel, to be honest with you.
What about Brian Dable and the job he's done there?
When they slide 5 in a row,
that would be the time. Yeah. Let's wait.
Yeah, but at this point in time, Dable deserves it.
No, look, I think it's
or
fine.
Sirianni.
It's a 3. I think McDaniel's not going to throw it in there, but because of the 3 losses without Tua, but he should be. I think that he's done a spectacular job. I think those three coaches have all done a great job, but I think McDaniel's been fantastic. And I just wanted to shout him out because, I know a lot of people doubt it. I'm not going to call out Trevor, but a lot of people doubt it.
What do you mean? You just called me out.
I know. Sorry. It's just what I thought of. But a lot of people, Trevor included, doubted McDaniel when he was hired, and I think that
I was just defending my boy, Brian Flores.
He's silenced a lot of the critics, and so is Tua. Eden, I saw an interview with Tua the other day. He's talking to the reporters. He's like, so how about my deep ball? He's like, and he's like, look,
how about your deep ball?
He's like, I heard all the criticism. He's been good this year. He's
You're throwing it to Waddle and Tyreek Hill. That's not you.
Oh, wow. Do you hear this, Eden? The continued disrespect of Tua. You see this? It comes out. It's not you. Look at him. How many times does Tua have to step up? How many games does Tua have to win before you?
How many games does he have to barely beat the Steelers with Kenny Pickett?
Oh my gosh! What are you
who
saying?
couldn't beat the Steelers? Tom Brady.
True. Hey, say with Joey B. Hey, Joey B threw 4 picks against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey, I don't know.
Here's
what do you have to say?
Here's what I want to say about the Dolphins. I agree with Ryan. I think they're legit. I think. Probably at this point in time, I'm trying to think who else is in they're a top 3 team in the AFC. Wow. In my opinion. I think
the third team.
They're right up there with the Bills and with the Jets.
Chiefs.
No, I'm kidding. And with the Chiefs. I'm kidding. But here's my concern. And I think this has been a concern with Kyle Shanahan's offense for a while now, which obviously Mike McDaniel comes from.
Right.
They like to, especially this team, they like to throw the ball a lot. They like to throw deep a lot, which is where they want to attack you. What does that look like in January when they're on the road in Buffalo, maybe? I don't know how that team is going to respond to those conditions at that point in time. I don't think they're built for that type of success. I think they're built for Miami weather success. So that is my one concern with how far this team can go is, are they limited by weather? And I know they're playing Chicago today. I don't think it's super rainy there, but like that would be great to be like, it's rainy here. How does that affect their offense? And are they able to still be effective in a bunch of different conditions? Now, every offense will go down a little bit, but that at this point is my concern with this team. I have all the confidence in this team. Like I said, they're a top 3 team in the AFC, but my concern is how does their offense translate to January football?
Fair. Yeah. Can they get it done in the 20-degree weather up in, in the north? If they go up to Buffalo or something, right? Can they handle that? Mm-hmm. Right? KC's freezing at that time of year too.
If Cleveland fair. Or if Cleveland, if Cincinnati, if one of those teams wins the division, then they got to go there.
Cleveland,
baby.
Where did Cleveland come from?
Baby.
I was trying to say Cincinnati, and then I said Cleveland first, and I just went with it. So.
Hey, Trevor, I have a bet with Eden. Deshaun goes 5-1 or better. Hey, we need that if we want to make the playoffs. All right, here we go. Deshaun December. Here we go, baby.
What am I listening to?
Sorry.
Deshaun December. Deshaun to get a masseuse.
Dude, okay, here's my question. What's Deshaun going to do when he's sore after every football game? Who's he going to call?
I don't know who he calls. Who does he call?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know either. Does he call masseuse? Like, should he do? I don't know.
He should just take like an ice bath. I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Fair enough. Here's my thing with the Dolphins.
I can't even listen to this. Go.
I'm a grifter. What? I'm a grifter. I don't believe.
Trevor's a self-proclaimed grifter.
No, here's the thing. Miami's a very good football team. I have to eat my words a little bit. Mike McDaniel has done a tremendous job. I love Brian Flores. I feel attached to defending Brian Flores, but Mike McDaniel truly has done an excellent job. I think Tua has played very good football season. I think Tua is a little overrated. I don't think he should deserve all the love that he's gotten. I don't think he's looked. He doesn't look like. I think you guys are talking about a little bit too much, but I got to eat my words. Tua's look great. Miami's look great. Do I think Miami's the 3rd best team in the AFC? No. I would put Cincinnati, Baltimore, KC, and Buffalo over Miami right now. I understand the head-to-head to whatever. Who cares? Yeah, Baltimore's good.
I told you Baltimore would win the AFC North, and I stand by that prediction. Anyway, continue.
You're probably going to be right, but I would put Miami as the 5th best team in the AFC. They're going to be a playoff team. And if you're the Tennessee Titans, you're probably not looking forward to that wild card matchup against the Miami Dolphins. I'm just saying. So I think Miami's a dangerous team. They can get really hot on offense, as we've seen with these huge fourth quarter comebacks. Baltimore, even Detroit last week, they really turned it on in the second half. And at the end of the day, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are nuclear weapons. They're absolutely nuclear. They're unstoppable, lightning speed, just over the top, big play waiting to happen. And yeah, that's going to elevate Tua a little bit. It's the same thing with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. It's the same thing with, Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. So same could be made here with Tua having two nuclear weapons on his roster. But, I'll give Tua a little bit of shout out. He's 5-0 as a starter this year. He beat the Bills. He beat the Ravens. So.
Ian, was he now? Is he 10-1 in those last 11 or something? What is it? I don't even know what it is.
He had one loss, I think. Yeah, whatever it was.
That one huge win against Pittsburgh, man. Oh, and yeah, by the way, Ryan, I got your message. Devontae Adams is an unbelievable wide receiver. Thank you for noticing that.
Oh, yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Yeah, do we also want to tell them that I traded Devontae Adams to you? Yeah, you're welcome. Anyway.
For what? What'd you get?
CD and Mike Evans. But,
Wait, and Mike Evans is back on my team.
Yeah, but hey, guess who's on my team? Patty Mahomes.
Jackson Mahomes? You have Jackson Mahomes on your team?
Okay, yeah. Look, ladies
Trevor,
and gentlemen,
do we have a spread for Ryan this week?
Yeah, give me one. Yeah, give me one.
Now I can't see them all because all the games started. But
let's do an afternoon game.
Yeah,
let's do the Rams-Bucs game. Eden, let's do the Rams-Bucs game. Might as well.
Okay.
We could, or we could do the Chiefs. Yeah. We can do the Rams.
But the Chiefs game is such a big spread.
That's so many. That's
hard.
All right, Ryan. Yeah. Jack, you go ahead. Jack, go ahead.
Give it to me.
Ryan, as we were talking about the Rams-Bucs earlier, the Rams at the Bucs today.
Yep.
The Bucs are favored by 3. What are we thinking?
Bucs -3. Lock it. Book it. Wow. It's done. Bucs -3.
I picked the Rams this week, and for everyone out there listening, I went 14 of 15 in my picks last week. I got 2 points wrong because Jacksonville blew that lead to Russell Wilson out in London. Otherwise, I would have
Broncos country. Let's ride.
I still made my $80 for the week, and I sit first in the work league, so I love that. But anyways. Well, that's it. Any shout outs before we end the pod, boys?
Yeah, I don't know. My only shout out is SMU again for putting up 77 and winning yesterday. That was spectacular. And future NFL receiver Rashee Rice, guy spectacular, unbelievable receiver at SMU. He's going to get drafted. Just shout out to him. 2 more touchdowns yesterday. Fantastic player. That's my only shout out. Huh? Sorry? No. No. It might look like it sometimes, but no.
Who do I have to shout out? Would it be a Facts Over Feelings podcast if I didn't shout out the Phoenix Suns? I mean, it doesn't feel right that we haven't brought them up once. I'm sorry. And I'm going to shout myself out. Why? Oh, the Suns are going to be 6. The Suns are not good this year. We're done.
Cam Johnson's out for the year. Watch.
We'll be fine.
Watch.
Jay Crowder's being called up right now as we speak. Right. The Suns are 7-2. We're going to be a top 3 team in the West with or without Cam Johnson. The team
7-1.
Huh?
Sorry, what?
I couldn't hear you, but anyway.
I said who's 7-1.
Hey, that has nothing to do with anything. The unnamed team that's 7-1 has nothing to do with the Phoenix Suns. Shout out Cleveland.
Let's go.
Look,
speaking of the Phoenix Suns, the Phoenix Suns play against the Philadelphia 76ers in Philadelphia on Monday. Tomorrow.
Go to the game.
I will be there. Supporting my Suns, baby.
Bro, the Philly fans are going to kill you. They're going to kill you.
You can't get away from me, even if I'm away from you. You come to me. What? There we go. Suns in 4.
What is Eden saying?
Suns in 4.
Suns in 4? No. Stop.
Suns in 4.
Oh, my Lord, dude. All right.
That was a good way to finish the podcast, Ryan. Don't you agree?
I love that. Great way to finish.
Yeah. I mean, look, all I got to say is that, wait, one more shout out. Evan Mobley had 8 blocks the other day. Oh my gosh. How can I forget these things? 8 blocks.
One more thing. Shout out Jabari Smith for what he did last night. He put up wait, did he play? No.
All right, look, ladies and gentlemen.
Paolo did. My first overall pick, Paolo did.
This is where we wrap up the podcast.
Eden doesn't miss. Eat him.
One more shout out. Shout out Benedict Mathurin, future rookie of the year. He's playing great ball in Indiana right now. And shout out Paolo Banchero, future rookie of the year as well.
Wait, so who wins Rookie of the Year?
They're both going to win it.
Trevor, Trevor, who's going to win it?
It's going to be Paolo. He's playing great.
Without a doubt.
He just put up 33 and 15 the other night. He's already better than Evan Mobley and Jabari Smith.
Combined.
He just had an L. It is what it is.
He plays for the Magic.
Just got to be better. I'm sorry. Just got to be better. Look, no, he's been fantastic. I can't knock him. He's been really good. But look, this is where we wrap up the podcast. We didn't really get to NBA discussion very much. Thank you for shouting out the Suns. Good God. But this is where we wrap it up. We'll talk more NBA next week. We'll go through, talk about some NFL, college football, whatnot. Hope everyone enjoyed, and go Cavs.
Eat him.